Hello and welcome to the Sports Box, and welcome to a very important episode that we're going to do today. I have with me Prasad, who is the founder of the Panenka View podcast, and Sudhir, who's also been on the show before. So, welcome, guys. I don't know what Sudhir is doing behind that mask. I think is he hiding after that season that Arsenal had, or is it because I personally felt when the season started, I had better expectations from Arsenal. I thought they could even they had a shot in the top four, a small chance, but I definitely thought they would, enter into the top six, and especially after the transfer window they had. And I thought that Nicolas Pepe was a coup that Arsenal initially when he was linked to Arsenal, I never thought it would actually happen, but 70 million for a player, their record signing, and he had a sluggish start and a lot of stop start starts during the season, and a lot of managers, I think Arsenal, who had Arsene Wenger for the longest time, had three managers this season, which is unknown territory for Arsenal. So I'm going to just ask your opinions first of all. Let's just start with the transfer window, because I was pretty optimistic about Arsenal in the transfer window, apart from the Luis sale, because Luis buy, because we knew that David Luiz is not very reliable defender, but they didn't have a lot of options, and the budget they had didn't really allow anyone else. So first I'll start with Prasad. Prasad, what do you think? How do you rate the transfer window that took place? Because there was a lot of talk that Arsenal are not going to sign any big names, and then so out of nowhere, they end up signing Pepe. And how would you rate it out of 10? And what do you think they could have done differently during the transfer window?
Well, firstly, like we go back to the transfer window, and like you said, the budget not being there, and suddenly Nicolas Pepe being signed for a fee of 72 million, that is 60 or 60 odd for him, and 12 add-ons including the agent fee. Everyone was shocked, surprised, and excited by what prospect was coming to Arsenal, because we'd seen that he was just behind Lionel Messi in the assist, only guy to be in double figures for goals and assists. So the transfer window, I would say, was the third transfer window since Arsene Wenger left, because he left in 2018, and that was then Unai Emery came in and he managed the season. So this was the third transfer window. So it was still a rebuilding phase, and the players that were brought in the transfer window were specific to their positions. For example, we needed a player like Nicolas Pepe, we needed a centre back, etc. So what we've done in the transfer market and what we are going to do going forward is we are going to address the positions that are there to be filled, and not just anything. I mean, if you ask me if about finishing, I felt we could have finished in top four, but seeing how Emery went by in his last 5 games of the previous season, there were some cracks that they were only being papered, and then what happened is that he lost the dressing room, and from there we fell apart. I mean, we didn't win a game for like 60 days. The game that we won was in October against Bournemouth, and then we straight away won against West Ham away, where we still came back from one down and we turned it around. So yeah, if to be specific to the question, good transfer window can be better, but it's a phase. It's a phase when you've moved on from the longest serving manager. It's still going to take time. Obviously, with all the chickening out with Ivan Gazidis and Sir Chipswick, there was also a lot happening on the boardroom. The boardroom was being changed, and that actually led to the season that we have. And I think Sudhir would also agree with me, that it's a structural change. So now we know that who's in charge at the personnel. I mean, Rahul Sanley, Vinay. So Rahul's going to go by the agent way, and the others, there is also a scout model in progress. So yeah, it's going to be a combination of both.
Great. So Sudhir, I think you can take off your mask now. And
so let me just say that
straight
masks are useful for three things. One, it hides that you're an Arsenal fan. Two, it hides a double chin if you have one because you're stuck at home for a very long time. And number three, most importantly, it's very good for social distancing. Arsenal fan. But nevertheless, so I think one of the most important things that I wanted to say was we bought Martinelli, which is a buy for the future, especially a couple of years. That was one. We also bought Saliba, but then he was again on loan at Saint Etienne. So I mean, it was one of those buys where we sort of scouted the market, got a player before he becomes, the next big thing or the hot prospect. So that was a very smart buy. Now, hopefully, that purchase pays off in the next season. Most importantly, I think one of my favorite players from this season and also from the past, I think half a year when I came to know about him, sorry for being this guy, was Tierney. So we bought a fantastic left back, and again, we, I mean, the season is so crazy because Nacho Monreal played for Arsenal this season. That's how long the season has been, and everything has gone through. So Monreal came in, then he was sold. Tierney came in later, got injured. Now he's come back. He's had a good run of games. So essentially, we've had good purchases this season. And yes, the Pepe purchase was a game changer. I mean, last year during the summer, everyone was like, Arsenal don't have any money. It's just 50 million or 60 million, and boom, one single player, 72 million, and then you have Martinelli and Tierney at a decent price. So, in terms of recruitment, I think we did a really good job. I was very skeptical about the David Luiz purchase because one, we've had a fairly nice experience with Peter Cech, who's coming from Chelsea as well. But one of the patterns that we are seeing right now is Arsenal is now becoming like this retirement home for players who are, wanting to stay in England.
Stay in London for that
Yeah,
matter.
still in London for that matter. And uh, the the hangover from the Czech saga was not bad, but obviously it was like, all right. And now Luis is like an even more polarizing figure. So yes, his PR is fantastic. His social media presence is brilliant. The things he says during interviews is brilliant. But he has a mistake in him, which is seen during the game. And unfortunately, we've seen him. He's conceded the most penalties by a single player this season in the league. So again, you sort of knew this was coming, and you sort of knew he was not here because he wants to be at us. You realize he was here because he's used to the life in London. He's like based here. He's the agent. Is I mean, whatever. And again, one sort of shady prospect, which is like a bit of a hit and miss in the Arsenal community right now, is as Prasad mentioned, Raul has the agent approach. Now, whether this pays dividends or not remains to be seen. But the association with Kia Jurapchian is not necessarily a wonderful association.
Correct.
And now again it's sort of manifesting where Willian was recently briefly linked with us for a while, and I'm like,
Actually, that's
why
a
are
very interesting point you mentioned. Actually, funny fact that Willian and Louise actually own a restaurant together in partnership in London, and that is why none of them want to leave London. And that
leave London? I mean, I get it. I'm not. You realize Willian and Chelsea. Obviously, there was this bizarre link to Barcelona last season, and for whatever reason that collapsed. So now you are assuming business interest, personal life also played a factor, and now he's this classic Arsenal bargaining chip where you have either a talented player or a developing player who's linked with Arsenal, and then 2 weeks later you realize, oh, they've signed an extension at their existing club. So that has happened many times in the past few years, and it's happening again. And if Willian comes, I genuinely be confused about this sort of purchase. I'm like, why are we doing this? Why can't we get a normal player who's good, but not like a veteran? I mean, the titles are fancy. He's a PL veteran. He's a league winner. He's part of a league winning team. But he's essentially coming here as a like his second. He's retired from his main job and now he wants to take up a cushy internship, and he's not really bothered about. So I think that is a bad mentality to have. I would much rather we sort of recruit a Tierney.
Sorry to cut you off. I just want, you mentioned a lot of stuff about what rating would you give them out of 10? If I'm asking you, figures, like a proper
6 out of 10 for the summer window, in my opinion. Because Martinelli, Tierney are fantastic choices. Pepe is fantastic. So I say 6 to 7. I think Luis was like a huge blot. I think the only part for me which sort of loses points is Luis.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we've done a really good job personnel-wise.
And Prasad, how much do you rate the transfer window? I mean,
Similar. Like it's going to be on 6 and 7 because like you mentioned, there are going to be a couple of very good buys, and then there are going to be these shocks. But yeah, that's how it is going to be. And I mean, the way the season went by, and even for Pepe, who had three managers and had to go through, had so many bums surrounding him. Some of them should be sold. I think this season was like a wash. I had said it back when we had lost away to Sheffield. Like this is a wash because the way Emery was going, and then it took 2 months for them to sack him. And
Sack him, yeah.
actually sack him. There was an international break where they brought in Freddie Ljungberg, and then they went to Arteta after that City drubbing. So you can, I think for the reason I've blamed the Cronkies over the years is because when they could have let Wenger go, they didn't, because they didn't have a plan. And when they did want to fire Unai Emery, because when we knew that when Wenger is gone, now it's going to be a hire and sack club. We are going to be a firing club now, because the manager that
that's what
comes in,
happened with United again.
yeah. So
I think this way, again, like I say, this knowing fully well where we are right now and the level we are at now, Arsenal are a fairly nicer club when you compare to most of these other clubs. I'm not saying we lack ambition, but I think we are more patient. I think we have a fairly simpler thought process when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to managerial changes. But I think the biggest disconnect I felt with Arsenal this season was it did not feel like we were watching the Arsenal. It felt like we were watching sort of a Chelsea light in terms of everything, in terms of the recruitment that we had, in terms of the sort of ways these players were recruited. And like Prasad mentioned, now Emery was, you could see Emery was like for lack of a better word, a dead man walking from the very initial parts of the season, and somewhere towards some summer itself. The loss from Baku in the Europa League last season sort of hurt. And then you could see, this is not really working out. We were excited, but something felt missing. Yeah. Then you saw the results were bad. Then you saw that the football was very drab. And then he was just drifting through his job. His management of Ozil was not, and personnel was not really great. Then you had the whole Xhaka saga. And then, you could see a disaster happening in slow motion, and you're like, what is happening? Why can't someone just use common sense and a cool head to solve this? But that was not happening. Again, there was an international break. He should have been fired before the break, so that even if it was Ljungberg or if it was an Arteta or another manager, they could have got at least 2 weeks of clean, slate to sort of implement their strategy, wait for the international players to come back. And as it is, honestly, we don't have a lot of internationals, unfortunately. So that's like a horrible thing at this point of time.
Yeah, I know.
So, they could have bedded that philosophy. This was pre-COVID time, so obviously there was real life meetings and everything would have been much more nicer. But we still waited for that Southampton game after the break. Then we lost that game. Then there was a Europa League game. That was a defeat. And then you're like, oh, finally, they just realized now we have to do the inevitable.
So yeah, I remember the Southampton draw and Lacazette scoring in the 96th minute, and it was an equalizer first. So obviously, but even after the equalizer, nobody was ecstatic. I mean, it was at home. Obviously, teams were coming home and having more shots on target than us. They were outplaying us at home. He seemed to sort of be scared at doing something. I mean, Unai Emery could have played attacking football, but he was so defensive. The first thing that every person on the group or anywhere would say, why are there 5 or 6 defenders in the team when you have such a good attacking personnel? When you have 2 players like
Ozil.
Yeah, and you have Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe. Everybody was waiting to see these 4 of them together, and every time it could be one of them on the bench or one of them. So he practically lost the dressing room. I think he was scared because he was trying to fix the defense, and that maybe in terms of attacking the game, we could have probably lost the game. So he was a dead man walking, like Sudhir said. And then it stems from the fact that over the years, the people at the top of the management have always, delayed it. their decisions, be it moving on or be it appointing Unai. Even the guy who chickened out of the management was Ivan Gazidis, and Ivan Gazidis was the guy who brought in Unai Emery. And after that, we are just pointing fingers at what? And even Ivan Gazidis, all these years spent time to get control. And when he got control, he moved out. So it was like a totally structural change that happened. But some point of time, it was bound to happen. And it happened in such a season where there was so much to deal with. I mean, this season has been so long, like Sudhir said. I feel it has gone on forever. And finally, it came to an end that day, which was a relief. But yeah, moving on to...
And also,
I have a very important question here, Sudhir and Prasad, both of you. Do you think that Emery was the right managerial appointment at the onset? Forget this season, don't look at this season alone. If you look at the entire direction that Arsenal were going in, and we spoke that Gazidis is the guy who appointed Emery. Do you think he was the right appointment in the first place, or they could have looked at other managers, because they were dealing with a lot of other managers as well? They'd quoted Brendan Rodgers as well, and there were a lot of rumors going on at that point of time.
Allegri came in, gave a presentation, and I think they still picked Emery. So Prasad, I would like you to launch into this, because if I start, I don't think I'm going to stop.
So Prasad, he was the right.
I don't know. Look, I've always been of the opinion that what goes on in the back goes on in the back. What's there for us to see is that Unai was there. Now, what happened with Allegri, what happened with any other person, I have thoroughly distanced myself from such topics. We always knew that was the first thing. But the thing that it went all downhill from the mid-season, it went all downhill. I mean, even if we missed Champions League by 1 point, if you remember, that home draw against Brighton, or you can say in the last games where we actually reached the Europa League final, but we missed out on that 4th place by 1 point. It was there to be seen. And game after game, you could see that the big stars were pulling us out. The big stars were pulling us out. We were winning because we had the likes of Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ozil, Xhaka, Aaron Ramsey. But so he kind of got exposed, and it was necessary that we filled those gaps. But then it always came to Emery, who lost the control of the dressing room. And you can see with the likes of Wenger and Arteta that the players have that fear in the back of the mind, and they have that respect. And in terms of Unai, it felt like another manager, player power coming into picture.
So I think, I know this sounds like a shameless plug, but almost 2 years ago, when Emery had just been appointed, we were on the Panenka view. That was when we were talking about me being excited for the Emery era. And again, I remember saying the same thing during that time. I know it sounds unambitious, but I think I sort of knew our level, and I knew why Emery was brought in, because the idea was just to have like a stable personality, sobering personality, be in England, play normal football, be around the Europa places, maybe win the Europa League as well, come back to the Champions League, and maybe 3-4 seasons later, we could have moved on to a different manager. So the intent was nice, I would say. And again, I don't have any problems. Essentially, I think Arsenal are a fairly decent bunch. We don't have a problem with Emery the person, but you could see how bad his tactics were. Also, I think maybe in hindsight, it looks like it. He was never at a big job. All his jobs at Spanish clubs were at clubs which knew where they were punching their weight. And then he went at Europa League and he won it because everyone else was either not taking it seriously or they were too complacent, and he did a fantastic job. No one's going to take that away from him. But you could see that when he went to PSG, he sort of froze in deer in headlights. The bigger personalities at PSG, he had problems with Neymar. Of all the people in the world, you don't buy a 220 million player and then have problems with him. So he had problems taming Neymar. He had problems taming some of the other folks. I think people like Di Maria sort of complained. Then he took a break. Then he came here. We don't have personalities as large as that. But nevertheless, you could sort of see it creeping in. I think one excuse, which was given was communication was probably a fault. He was talking in Spanish. He was not able to communicate his ideas effectively. I don't think that is the case. I think the players at Arsenal are fairly nice. There were some jokes about how even they were mocking him about the good evening thing, but I think it was in good humor. I don't think they were genuinely mean. But his football was drab. Even in that 22-game unbeaten run which we had a year and a half ago, you could see that it was like, how are we winning 22 games in a league? We couldn't see the flair, the football, the wonderful attacking football that we were associated to. It was a very चलो शिफ्ट में जाके काम करना है कर लेते हैं घर आ जाते हैं
mechanical way of playing, I think, which wasn't
I think he was
very
scared.
aggressive.
I think he was very scared. I think one of the things which he did was, while he was reactive and tactical to what the other managers did, I think what he did, and which got exposed in England and at Arsenal because of this vicious media and the fans like us, was that you could see that he was not reacting to counter the opposition. He was reacting to numb the opposition and then absorb pressure and then maybe one goal in a counter attack. That sort of did not sit in with the players, with the fans, with the supporters of Arsenal, and that, I think that is what led to his downfall, is meek mentality. But nevertheless, I am very sure all of us wish him well. He's just been appointed once again.
Yeah. I mean, it would be
sure
definitely.
He's going to win the Europa League before we win the Europa League. I can definitely write that down again.
So now the Emery part, I think that is over. Prasad, you mentioned a very good point about the speed of decision making lacking with Arsenal, because I felt at a point when Emery was sacked, obviously there was a chance, because I think they were lured in by that the enigma of Freddie Ljungberg, because he was an ex-player, Lampard doing a decent job at Chelsea, Ole was doing all right at Manchester United, so they probably thought that Freddie Ljungberg could do a similar job for Arsenal because he was a part of that fabric when Arsenal were true winners. They used to compete for every tournament with utmost intensity. But do you think at that point probably they should have gone in for a proper full-time manager? Because both the managers, that one thing that is common in them is both of them have played for Arsenal.
But I think during that Ljungberg saga, Arsenal was not an attractive club. Because now the rest of the world could see the shambles we were in. So, for example, when Emery was hired, Allegri came in, gave an interview, and I think people still chose Emery over Allegri. In hindsight, you realize this is a genuinely bad decision. You can't, again, no offense meant to Emery, but you can't, and again, Allegri also plays reactive, boring football, but you can't weigh two people for a job and then say, oh, you know what, Emery is actually better than Allegri. That itself shows how bad
to be very honest, I'm not even sure if Allegri agreed to the job. Even for a
But I'm
saying with you, the best of players in the world, and he comes to an Arsenal team, he wants to protect his CV, right?
I agree.
Look. There might have been a lot of factors there. There might have been a lot of factors. The transfer budget that we were saying, we always say that we have such a meager budget, and maybe that could have been one of the reasons that the
Allegri didn't come in,
and Allegri didn't come in. So that's why when you told me, I said I'm going to distance myself from such issues that are in the back, because they are all about ifs and buts. Now what we've had is Emery, whose career went downhill, and obviously, like Sudhir said, we wish him well. Obviously, we won't make fun of or memes on him. I personally distance myself from that. And for Freddie Ljungberg, as we say, here's some inside information.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Ljungberg was going to be the full-time manager. Freddie Ljungberg was a stopgap between Unai Emery and the sinking ship, and then the next appointee. So at the time where we were in, and this was in 2019 and 20, Mikel Arteta should have been approached earlier.
Yeah. So Mikel
Arteta, I clearly remember the City game being in mid-December, and we sort of conceded 3 and probably could have gone 4 down, and Mikel Arteta was right there on the opposition bench, right next to Pep Guardiola. So probably that might have been Arteta might have had a talk that let's get the City game out of the way, and then I can see probably that. But that doesn't stem from the fact that if Mikel Arteta comes at the start of the season, and maybe probably a bit earlier, we still could be 6, 7, or 9 points above easily, because the draws that you see. And you could see Mikel Arteta right from the first game. The players knew what he wanted of them. He knew what the players lacked. And you could see that camaraderie come in. And then who forgets the 2nd Jan defeat, defeating Manchester United at home, not giving them a single sniff. So it's been together, to sum up, it's been a collective failure, I would say. I would not point my finger at one single person.
Yeah. True.
But the thing is that I was pretty sure that this season was a wash when we lost away to Sheffield, because I knew that being the guys at the top are going to take a long time to move on from Emery, and then bring in some stopgap, and then appoint the next big thing, that is Mikel Arteta. And then Mikel Arteta was going to need another 4 or 5 maybe transfer windows going forward. So Arsenal right now is again, like we say, under a project under transition.
4 or 5 transfer windows. We'll be in relegation basis if we don't do a better job right now. I mean, again, jokes aside, you can see Arteta is not having some complicated philosophy either. This is not like Sarri ball. This is not like Guardiola's football. Arteta plays a fairly simple brand of football. Arteta tries to do the basics well, and then sort of counter the opposition. So again, this has been a long season. It's a complete blur. But even from the restart, there have been losses to Brighton, the draw to Leicester with Leicester. Even if these results went nicely, we would have still been much higher, probably in Europa.
But I'll still give him a benefit of doubt, because being the
absolutely. Yeah.
And like I always say, that we've tolerated a lot of shit before, and this is just like a learning phase for him. This is his first full-time job, and not because he's very proactive on the touchline and he's doing all sorts of things, but he's genuinely a very good manager. If you look inside, every role right now in his team is clear. Everyone from the top management to the players are very clear what he wants of them and what his long-term vision is. I think that is why when we lost that City game and Luis made that blunder, he got a re-sign. Arteta makes those decisions. Mikel Arteta has communicated he wants these players, and that is why they are being signed. They are not being signed for the sake of it.
Yeah, and also I think he's doing normal things, like he's using Tierney in his position. He's using Xhaka effectively. He's pairing Xhaka and Ceballos is having a renaissance under him.
Correct.
It sounds very odd to say, but Aubameyang is deployed on the left, but you can see how prolific he's been. You can see how he's used people like Rob Holding. Now again, Rob Holding has not been stellar right now, but he's doing a fairly decent job. You can see some confidence and progress in players like Holding, for that matter. Saka has been used effectively. So again, like I said, it doesn't take rocket science to do the normal things, and we are really glad that Arteta is doing it. His post-match interviews, his general interviews, the way he speaks, the sort of pressure he's putting on the Arsenal board right now to say, listen, I know I'm new, but I know I need my players. I know you can't be stingent right now, so we need proper recruits in the right position. He's doing a good job, and he has everyone's support and goodwill. And I hope and I pray, and I am pretty confident he's going to deliver, not just say things, but he's going to deliver on that. But I think the problem with the management, I think that whole fiasco goes back seasons and seasons ago, from when Arsene should not have been let go, should have been let go, all sorts of things. But yeah, we can only hope that the Kroenke's, sort of back Arteta up. And again, we're not asking for $300 million investments either. That's the biggest problem. We are asking for fairly middling players. Like, for example, if you offer Wilfred Zaha, rumors are suddenly coming in the past 2-3 days. If you offer Prasad, Wilfred Zaha for 60 million, I don't even think I want Zaha. I don't think I want a Zaha. What I want is maybe a nice centre back. Again, someone from the league, maybe someone who's league ready, maybe a nice number 10, or at least, I don't know what is happening with the Ozil fiasco is a whole other segment altogether. But yeah,
or a central defensive midfielder for, say, like a physical presence in midfield, because Lucas Torreira is like that hound dog who can be there, but you seriously need someone like, let's say, Thomas Partey is being linked to us, or maybe with that physical presence. Abu Dhabi had that physical presence.
I also think Torreira, unfortunately, is one of those players who's happy and performing, but I think he still wants to go back to Italy. I think the window that he landed, his agent was saying, you know what, years from now we're going to go back to Italy. I think, again, he's a nice person, but he's homesick, it seems. So the sooner we sort of clear this mess and get a Partey, hopefully at a reasonable price, it'll be nice. And I think our demands are not outlandish. Next season, we don't expect Arteta to deliver the league on a platter, but competent football, not making brain farts like losses to Brighton and losses to dropping points with Southampton, dropping points to
Villa.
We won at Southampton.
Yeah. Oh, the loss to Villa. My goodness, that's what I'm saying. Villa are literally in the league because we gifted them 3 points. Where this is bizarre. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I literally blocked these games out of my mind because I don't want to remember.
Sudhir, that was on the back of 2 massive victories, which probably not even Arsenal fans would have expected that they're going to beat Liverpool and Man City.
And then you lose to Villa and in like one solitary goal, and then you question.
So again, yeah.
So why can't you score 2 goals at Villa or not concede a goal at Villa? I'm not disrespecting Villa, but you can't be the Arsenal and then say, "Nahi hota hai, bhai 1-0, it's okay." No, it's not acceptable. I'm not asking you to win 7-0 away at Old Trafford. I'm asking you to win at Villa and have a respectable result at Old Trafford. Now you bet Man City in the FA Cup semi-final, and that's like, oh, fantastic. Then you lose to Jack Grealish. I'm very sure Jack Grealish's valuation went up by 20 million simply because we won that game.
Correct.
Bizarre, but I mean, I can't help it.
This.
No, I mean, I'm going to differ here, and I'm going to say that for everyone that's going to watch this, and we got to stop blowing things out of proportion firstly, and mix everything together. I believe every game.
I'm sorry, I'll have to cut you off right now because we are going to continue this episode again. We thought that it will be very interesting to do it in 2 parts. So we will have a long, detailed discussion about what should be done, and towards the end of the season, how things ended and how will Arsenal look forward. So I'm just ending this episode right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please click on the like button and please subscribe to the Sports Box. Thank you so much, guys. We'll do a part 2 and we'll just continue from where we left off, Prasad.
Sure thing.
Okay.